I started working on trying to find another source of funding to keep Valve going. Immediately started chasing another publisher and were able to get a deal done with another publisher for Counter-Strike 2. When we got the deal done, Gabe at that point was super into knives, and as the deal gift for the parties, he built a knife that was inscribed Counter-Strike 2. And so the deal structure was, after we ship Half-Life 2, if you decide that you don't want to keep moving forward, then you can just decide to terminate the deal and we'll pay the money back. That ended up happening. So maybe a good choice because it took us a long time to ship Counter-Strike 2. So that we got done in probably May of 2003. And then through some more depositions, Vivendi figured out that we had gotten this new infusion of capital and kind of lost their mind trying to figure out how did that happen, because it was clearly part of their strategy was, running us out of money.
But what we decided was, hey, let's focus on the real nub of this and the thing that's going to lead to a resolution. Getting the judge to decide that we were right about the cybercafe business, and also to decide that we were right that if you were distributing these properties without a license, that's copyright infringement. We had asked for information about what they were doing in Asia, including Korea, and they, I think, to try to make our lives more difficult, produced a big chunk of documents in Korean, that were in Korean. I mean, everything from email to contracts to you name it.
And one of the things they were doing is just dumping huge amounts of discovery on it to force us to go and just have somebody go and look through it. It's like, oh, look, they ordered sandwiches again, right? It has nothing to do with the lawsuit. It's just an attempt to overwhelm us with tens of millions of pages of documents on the assumption that there's nothing in it that will be particularly problematic for their case, that will eventually just we'll either spend a bunch of money, which plays into their hands, or we'll just eventually give up because it's finding a needle in the haystack. And then we found the needle in the haystack, and that changed things quite dramatically.
It just so happened that there was an intern, summer associate, who was a native Korean speaker. And I said, Andrew, hey, can you look at this pile here and can you just tell me what's in there?
I would guess that particular intern probably went through a couple thousand documents that day, and only one was consequential.
And they said, well, there's these other emails between these vice presidents where one says something like, hey, we destroyed those Valve documents like you asked. And I said, are you sure it says that? And I said, yeah, that's what it says. And so, of course, that led to a conversation between me and the lawyer for the other side about, hey, it looks like your guys are destroying evidence. What's up with that? They wrote back and said, you're out of your mind. Whoever translated doesn't know what they're talking about. And I talked to Andrew again. I said, well, it looks like we're going to have a kind of a fight about this. We're going to need an affidavit from you about your translation. Can you tell me a little bit about your Korean skills? He goes, well, I'm a native speaker. At UCLA, I majored in Korean language studies. And I said, that's good. That sounds like we're in good shape.
The assistant general manager in Korea sending the letter to the general manager of Korea saying, I have destroyed those documents related to the Valve case as directed, which I think is one of Carl's happiest moments as a lawyer in his entire career. Just like stuff like this never, ever happens.
I did a lot of lawsuits for a long time. I never saw anything like that. Never. Maybe there was document destruction that couldn't be proved, but that was like, we're talking about it in writing. I'd never seen that before.
At that point, Judge Zilli said, all matters of fact are now, according to Valve, you don't get to contest any of those. Now we're just discussing how much you're going to have to pay and what the damages are.
And Gabe was still pretty mad. He was mad. He really didn't want to settle. He was mad enough that he wanted to keep going. But I remember sitting down with Carl and having a conversation with Carl, and I was like, so Carl, what do you think? Should we settle at this point? Is the right number? And he was like, well, you know, there's this old saying, there's a difference between being a pig and a hog.
That's great.